It's not just good night Qatar. Unfortunately, it's been goodbye Qatar for Canada. But on their way out, John Herdman was very, very excited, as he should be, about some of his potential superstars, thinking that there is going to be a lot of players soon to be on the move to what he loves to call those tier one clubs. John also went on to say the following: coming into Qatar, our players, many of them were unheard of. Now, I think a lot of our players have built credibility as a collective group. They performed well together, but there were certainly some strong individual performances throughout the tournament. Well, if John was looking into his crystal ball, then perhaps he would have seen that Alistair Johnston was on the move from CF Montreal. That move to Celtic officially official. I don't think Alistair even needs to come home. He can just stay in and around Europe because he's heading to Scotland next, and there will be another teammate of his joining him if Fabrizio Romano is correct, and who are we to doubt Fab there, with the links of Ishmael Kone to Watford. So very good things happening for those two players. Let's start with Alistair's, Ollie, because that is the one that is official. You can speak to Scotland, and I'm sure you'd love to gloat right now, but what I want you to do right now is I want you to speak to Scotland and tell them what kind of a player they're getting in Alistair Johnston.
They're listening, Ollie.
Got to be very careful. I think they're getting an excellent player. I describe him as the Canadian Azpilicueta to people who haven't seen him before. I think Alistair Johnston is that kind of player in terms of his adaptability, in terms of the range of his qualities. As a right-sided defender, whether he's playing right centre-back in a 3, right back or wing-back, as he showed increasingly he can do for CF Montreal this season as well. So just a player who I think is going to have utility wherever he goes because of how adaptable he is, how tactically intelligent he is. But what I'm really excited to see now with Celtic is how he grows. Playing under a very good coach in Ange Postecoglou, I think has identified a lot of young players to come to that club who have real potential to go higher, and Johnston is going to be part of that group. And I think it's a good step for him in terms of the quality of football as well. You get the Scottish Premiership, which all due respect to it as a league is probably not a significant step up on Major League Soccer nowadays. So you get that kind of easing in process of, being able to adapt to that level. But then you also get playing in the Champions League, right? Which is a massive step up and a massive area of growth for Alistair Johnston in terms of taking his game to the next level. So I think that's quite a nice balance. But yeah, just one of the most intelligent young players I've come across. A fantastic talker about the game. We all know that he's coming for our jobs after he retires. And a player who I think has, really progressed incredibly rapidly coming out of League One Ontario and college and into MLS and now at a World Cup as well. So I really think there's a lot more runway ahead of Alistair Johnston. I'm excited to see how that progresses at Celtic.
And Gareth, with Alistair's record, the most consecutive starts for a Canadian, you've seen a lot of this young man, and there's also perhaps some regret from other clubs in Scotland. I know you've been following this player closely. Anything to add? And then the floor is yours on Johnston.
First off, Alistair's not coming for our jobs. He does not want the pay cut, okay? It's going to be a dramatic pay cut once you move overseas and start playing over there. He's a little bit of a late bloomer, and I think that there was a little bit of wait and see when it comes to him. I know after last MLS season, I know this for a fact, he was trying to be pushed or be approached by a number of other clubs in Scotland, not Celtic, not Rangers, some of the other clubs, but they want to see a little bit more from him, as this was a player that was playing in League One Ontario. He played NCAA football in the United States, but before having a couple really good years. And if you're going to invest in a player that's a little bit more of a late bloomer, I believe he's 25 now, you want to be sure, right? So it's not as if you're taking a flyer on a 21-year-old. You want a player that's more established. And I think that what you're seeing from Alistair Johnston is just about what you get. There is some room, obviously, for a player to still improve, but I don't think the ceiling is too much higher, but I'm not sure if it has to be, because like Ollie said, he has all the requisite requirements to go on and be a successful player for Celtic, and potentially even be in a shop window. That's the thing. When you play for a club like Celtic, you're always in the shop window for other clubs in the UK and across Europe as well. The recruitment's really interesting, Ollie, and you touched on it. North America, Carter Vickers is also with Celtic right now. And the manager's also used his connections coaching previously in Japan to bring players from over there as well. Another really good in terms of emerging market, in terms of finding players for good value. So the fact that Canada is now put into that pile of nations that maybe is a little bit untapped, or maybe a place that you can get players for value where the prices aren't incredibly high. It's providing a real decent opportunity for savvy European clubs that kind of know what's up right now to go on and take full advantage of that. So kudos to Celtic.
It's been one heck of a ride for Alistair Johnston. Jordan, you played in the same competition as Alistair 3 years ago, so move for you isn't out of the woods yet, buddy. Just keep grinding. But I'll give you a word on Al if you want. But I also want you to speak a little bit about Ismail Kone as well, because that's another name where we expected him to move perhaps in the last few windows, but now with how he's shone, despite not getting a ton of minutes in Qatar, clearly he's done enough to prove to some pretty big clubs that he's ready.
Yeah, just a couple of things I want to touch on with Alistair Johnston. First one being him going to Celtic and the winning culture and how that would translate for Canada. Like, no disrespect to MLS, but going to a club that has been there for hundreds of years and has a winning, hard-nosed culture, like there's history, there's pedigree there. Like, that is something for him. It is just it's a seamless marriage. Like, if you watch Alistair Johnston, even if you don't know him, you watch him for 45 minutes. This is a guy that's getting stuck into tackles, that's running back, like has a extra battery pack. Like, he just never gives up. Now he's gonna get the week in and week out, and also the training of just better competition. So he's gonna come into CONCACAF Gold Cup, the next World Cup, just seasoned. So super excited for him. One thing I want to mention to maybe young kids watching me, like, oh, the rise. Like 3 years ago, he was playing League One. And then he goes to the World Cup and he's playing now. Understand, in moves like this, it is not something where he had a good World Cup tournament and Celtic's like, hey, we want to look at you. This is him being consistent for years now, of playing, not taking any days off, grinding, showing his quality. Even on a bad day, I've seen him not play his best matches and he's still offering something. So also, we want to get the story right, is that this is not something that overnight he woke up and he became a superstar. Like, this is a kid that like worked at it, grinded, and now the next move has paid off. And I guarantee you, with his brains, the fact that he's a utility man, he's going to take this experience and make it the best for him as well for his football career. Now, in terms of Ismail Kone, I think going to the championship, people talk about the Premier League all the time. The championship is a hard-nosed league. Like, this is like elbows up. All these teams in the championship feel that they should be in the Prem. Like, this is how they play. Like, the Premier League is the bougie part of the championship. Like, the championship is hard-nosed. So for him to go there, this is great because this is a talented young kid, but you have an option. Like, are you going to sink or swim? Are you going to embrace it and be like, this is my opportunity? I'm playing against hard guys that don't want to see me succeed. Some players will be like, man, you're 20. Like, this is not your time. Like, ride the bench. So this will be good. I want him to translate that to when he comes to Canada, that he should have that confidence. Like, hey, play me, Herdman. I have the experience under my belt, and I'm ready to just step into those shoes. So super excited for these two moves, and I'm just excited for these two young men to really just fully play the football they're about to play.
Gareth, Jordan mentions there is always a chance that these moves could be sink or they could be swim. What makes you optimistic that Ismail Kone can swim and swim laps in this league?
Because I have faith in the player's ability. He looks outstanding, and moving right now, it's a good time for him. I'm not sure if you guys feel the same way. When I heard Watford, I was like, oh, okay. They clearly have an eye for talent at that club. And they brought in some wonderful talent: Ismail Yassar, João Pedro, Asprilla. They're all in the side right now. Some players with real value, and they're fourth place in the league championship. Under the ownership of Pozzo, they've had 16 managerial changes since 2002. It's 2012. Sorry, it's been a revolving door. Like even since they were in the Premier League in 2017, they become a yo-yo club. And last year, the way that Roy Hodgson was unceremoniously left, and there was just no life in that club. Slaven Bilic is a coach right now, plenty of experience there. But is he going to be there long? That's my only question about this move. Right. Is just their regular. It's a bad habit, changing managers too much, too often, lacking some consistency. So let's hope that Bilic stays and Watford are able to continue to build this program so the player can get the most out of it, Ollie.
Yeah, I think the question there is does it matter, right? At least in terms of player development. Like you're right, it's destabilized Watford in terms of their success as a club, I think. But when you actually look at, they've had some good young players there, and Udinese as well. Like Richarlison came to England at Watford initially, right? Now he's starting as Brazil's number 9. So they've been a little bit underrated, I think, in terms of their ability to develop or identify young players from other countries and then move them on. I'm not sure if the managerial changes have too much of an effect on that. And Ismail Kone, for me, just briefly, like he is as exciting as it gets in terms of young Canadian players. Like since we saw Alfonso and Jonathan David go to Europe, this kid I think is the one with the most potential out of all of the rest since then. I really believe that. So going to be excited to see him.
So we heard Norwich City, Sheffield United. Is Watford a better place to go than those two clubs? I genuinely ask the question. I'm not saying that it can't be, because there's some great talent within that club right now. Those were the ones that were at least he was publicly linked to. We'll see. Every move that you make, there's inherent risk. But Watford, again, they're in a position to be promoted, 4th place in the table right now. They're going to be in the mix. So he just goes straight into it, which I think is actually a good thing.
I heard Marseille was in the mix as well, Ali, which I thought. I thought for sure maybe that little French connection would be the way as well. But
listen, at the end of the day, there is a moose on the Watford crest. Canadian, Kone, moose, Watford. See it all. The calculus in my head, it all adds up.